Hello, hello, everybody, and welcome to another adventure in history. I'm your host, Shane McInnes, and I hope everybody's having a good one. I've had a busy week, but a good week. It's Tuesday, so a bit too early to decide how the entire week is going to go, but it doesn't feel like a Tuesday, so I'm going to give it a tentative thumb up. Hope everybody's doing all right. Hey, Lafa Mamba. No worries about the raid, but appreciated that you would think about me. It warms my heart. Hope you're doing all right. I had something and now I've lost it. If it comes back, it comes back. So, this is Adventures in History, where we talk about old stuff and make fun of it and try to make it fun at the same time. And throw in some pop cultural references and a smattering of really bad puns. Hey, Stephanomly, how's it going? Welcome. Hope you're doing well. We're going to be talking about the Industrial Revolution tonight. This was a viewer request that we picked last week because some stuff went down and I didn't actually have things planned the way that I thought I needed to, and I didn't end up with a topic, so I sort of built a Gundam on stream and tried to talk about history last Tuesday, and it went over. Let's just say it went over. It's going. How's it going with me? Things are okay. I've been sort of trying to work on my my mental state lately. Is this when industry was an unmotivated Sue? A lazy Susan? Yes, and it was all just sort of rotated out in front of you. Hey, David, how's it going, man? So yeah, I've been trying to work on my stress levels and my anxiety levels lately. So I've been feeling better and having fewer days where I come home in absolute panic attacks. So 33 RPM. How is this getting back towards Flint, David? How are we getting back towards Flint? 33 RPMs, rotations per minute, tires on a car, cars are made in Flint. I did it for you. You get that? You've been doing the same? Glad to hear you better. I'm glad to hear you're doing better if you are doing better. And if not, it takes courage to even admit that you need to do work. I had to learn that. I've got a pretty big ego. And admitting that I needed to talk to people about mental stuff is, and it's a tough thing to admit, but cheers, and I hope you're doing well. And if you ever need to talk to somebody, hit me up. Laissez le bon temps rouler. Someone's been to New Orleans too frequently. Hey KP, how's it going? Flint confirmed. Doing therapy for a year, and it's still hard, but it's going. Thanks. Oh, cool. It's definitely not an easy thing. And I had someone tell me if it was easy, everybody would be nice. Giacomo Fedane. Now we're moving down to the Caribbean. Start talking about my grandma, we're going to have problems. All right. Okay. So we are going to be talking about... David, I hope you're not mad that I actually beat you to Flint. You got real quiet after I did that. It was just in jest, and I actually was sort of looking forward to it. Is there a Captain of Industry hat? No, I don't even know why. I just threw this on at the last minute. It's a steampunk top hat. That would be great. I could have, I don't know, maybe, I don't know how many of you all have seen the anime movie Steam Boy. I really quite like Steam Boy. And he sort of wears a little aviator's leather cap with the glasses, and I could have done that. That would have been maybe my industry hat. That would have been fun. But at the moment, no, Kelly, I don't have an industry hat. But hey, how are you doing, Kelly? Good to see you. I like the idea of a steampunk top hat, though. That seems interesting. I don't know how many other pieces of headgear that I can accumulate for various reasons. I don't know how many more so-and-so hats or pieces of facial gear that I can wear. A giant nut worn as a wreath. Nice. Or like maybe like as a halo held up by a big sprocket. Hope you're talking about mechanical fasteners. Yes. The little hex nut things. All right. Welcome everybody. Hope everybody's having a good one. Hope everybody's having a good day. I really do. Like I said, I've been pretty busy the last couple of days. I had a lot of stuff to do, and I've still got a lot of stuff to do. So for the rest of this week, I have another stream on Thursday. I have my regularly scheduled job, which, is a thing, and I'm glad to have it, so I'm not complaining about this. But I've also got a week's worth of sociology work to do, and I've got a paper due on Monday. So this week is going to be kind of crazy. So trying to take it piece by piece. I had to send out a lot of not so, hey, Asa, how's it going? Take a break. Taking a break seems like something that I get to do so rarely that it feels almost like a vacation. I will say that a couple of weekends ago, my wife and I did get to actually take a nice big break. We went up the weekend after my birthday to a cabin on a lake and spent some time and chilled out and didn't use the internet for days. That was nice. I really appreciated that. I did get sunburned, and now I'm peeling like a lizard. Taking breaks is for the weak. Just keep building gunpla. Coffee is for closers. Yeah, it was really nice. We had a good time. We got to sit out and enjoy nature. It was right on the water. There were birds flying around everywhere. We got to see an eagle kind of like come in and swoop down and grab a fish out of the water and go fly off. That was pretty excellent. Saw lots of wildlife, deer and squirrels and stuff like that. So it was a good time. We had a good time. Might go back up there again. My next actual scheduled break, finger quote, is for Thanksgiving, which is about a month away. So it's going to be a little bit for me before I get another kind of breather moment. But it's okay. I signed up for it. So, and I'm learning how to handle it better. And an albino squirrel. We did see an albino squirrel. That was one of the weirdest things I've ever seen in my life. So that was pretty cool. All right, so let's get cracking. As always on Adventures in History, we're going to talk about topics, but because it is Tuesday, this is a viewer request night. So last week on Tuesday, we had a vote on what topic we should cover. Viewers selected Industrial Revolution, so that's what we're going to cover. If you hang around to the end of the show tonight, you will get to both suggest and vote on our next topic. So, do so. Did you feel any kind of kinship with the uber pale tree rat? I do like climbing trees. I did not climb any trees, but Brittany did climb a tree. A very little bit, and then she got kind of startled that she was up off the ground. Brittany does not like being off of the ground, especially out of her own power off of the ground. So she climbed more trees than I did. All right. So let's talk about the Industrial Revolution. So I've got our map centered over here. Mistakes were made. Over here you can see us pointing at the British Isles. Because this is going to be where the good old Industrial Revolution gets its kick off. Especially on the big island here of Great Britain, and especially here in this region right around here, the good old-fashioned Midlands. And this is going to be something that doesn't initially start with mechanical stuff. And I know that when people talk about the Industrial Revolution, usually you get to like the steam power and the coal burning and the really horrible living conditions, and we'll get to that. But to understand the Industrial Revolution, you actually have to back up about 30 or so years before the real industrial stuff gets going and talk about changes in agriculture. And I know that everybody is yelling bait and switch now, that you came here to talk about steam and gears and you know, stuff like that, and I'm about to talk about wide casting versus line planting, but I promise you it matters. So let's talk about agricultural changes in the early 1700s. And you're probably already going to be, I don't know, a little bit off on this because you trust this bait and switch. Because people don't really talk that much about the British agricultural revolution in the early 1700s when you talk about the Industrial Revolution. But you really do have to start here, I promise. So, first off, Saboteur Jacques! So, here's the thing. You've got to think about what's going on in the world in the 1700s, okay? In the 1700s, we are experiencing the tail end of the first big colonization push. And England, the Kingdom of England, has become a global power. It has expanded its boundaries. It has territories all over the New World and down in Africa. And to keep this going, it needs people. It needs soldiers that are good British soldiers, but it also needs colonists, right? And so there's sort of a push for more people. But here's the thing. If you have more people, you got to have more food, right? Hi, America, West Indies, actual Indies, etc. Correct. There we are. So with this rising population, things inside England are going to have to change because they're going to just be more people. And part of this is also an outgrowth of the Enlightenment and the scientific revolution because people are now living longer. People are having access to more medicine and more basic health care. And when I say basic health care, I don't mean like insurance. What I mean is nutritional diets, rudimentary concepts of wash your hands before you go cut somebody up, you know, that kind of stuff. So the population is rising as a response to all of these things, which means that England, being a big honkin' island, well, it's actually not that big, but being an island is going to run into problems with land, right? Your humors are out of alignment. Yes, I need to cut your arm open and let you bleed in this bowl for a couple hours. So with this rise in the population, there's going to be more people, but the land stays the same, right? So England is an island and it's in a closed system. So there is land in the colonies, and a lot of people take that option to go to the colonies. But inside England, people are going to starting to get real testy about their boundaries. And you're going to start seeing property rights change in England, right? So the ability to delineate my land versus your land and to build fences around my land and to mark off what land is private property and public property actually has a role to play here. Because if I can, as a farmer, mark my territory off, that means I have control over my land. And that seems like a revolutionary idea for these people. Now, to us, it seems like no big deal. You put a fence around your friggin' border. Who cares? But a lot of farming in England, even all the way up into the 1700s, still held a lot of feudal structures. And they had this concept of common fields, where if you lived in an area, you could just go plant in this field somewhere. And everybody could plant there. And if you didn't watch your stuff, somebody could also come get your food. Hey, Neo Realms. Lend me your ears. The berry season, not to praise him. Thanks, Neo Realms, for the host. And welcome, my friend. For those of you that don't know, Neo Realms, streamer, also here from Mississippi, does fun artwork, listens to good music. You should go give him a follow. Fun fact, George Washington got his start as a colonial land surveyor. There we go, because we got to draw borders on land now, right? So if I can hack off a part of this territory and make it my own, I can keep other people out of it, hopefully. But that also means I can sort of fiddle around with my own land here. I can try different things, and I can sort of control what's going on my territory. If I want to add fertilizer, I can see what that does. If I want to rotate my crops around, I have a lot more control over that. And this is going to start making certain people more money. And this is going to start pushing towards some version of what we would call a middle class. Because big landowners are now going to have to compete with small landowners. If I can set out a farm and make myself a 10-acre field, I can trade with my family and I can go to market and I can sell my goods, and people might want to buy from me because if I'm a better farmer than the lord down the road who's enslaving all of his people and taxing everybody to death, people might want to buy from me instead of the jerkface. And this level of economic openness is actually going to allow for a lot more smaller people to enter the large market. And this is also going to move into a world where, in order to operate, there's going to have to be a financial system in place so that these small people can run a farm, because farming takes money and farming is a risky business. So you're also going to see a change not only just in the property rights and the market values, you're also going to see changes in the banking and credit system, because people are going to be able to take out loans now to go buy land so that they can start a farm. And when you start seeing money move around like this, that money is also more or less in a closed system in England, right? So there are going to be more people playing, and there are going to be more people in the game, right? Ethel the Aardvark goes to quantity surveying. Right. So you're going to start seeing people that fall into this sort of newer kind of middle class. And when I say middle class, I do mean very liberal middle class fingers here, for air quotes. These are people that would probably qualify as nobility at any other given time, but they're going to have disposable income. And with disposable income, you can do stuff, right? You can save, you can toy around, you can play, you can do things that people with no disposable income can't, right? So after a while of that, enter the Scottish market entrepreneurs. we're getting there. We're getting there. And again, we're talking about this region more or less right around in the middle part of the islands here, up into the southern part of Scotland, northern part of England. Right around this area is where a lot of the sort of inventions and new ideas are going to start coming from. And to get here, we need to talk about this guy. Not talking about Aqualung or the jazz flute, but the actual man named Jethro Tull. He was a real guy. He looks like this. He's a handsome gentleman. Oh, but the jazz flute. Right? Okay, so this is Jethro Tull. He is a landowner. He is a scientist. and he starts trying to come up with some new ideas. He's a thinker. He has plans and plots. He wants to be able to make these big farms that have really, really hardy crops that can run on basically no manpower or much, much lower numbers of people. And a lot of people think that this guy is a moron. That took the match. Jethro Tull should look like a yacht. So this guy starts thinking about how to make farming faster and better. And he actually gets pretty sick. He has this lung issue and has to go travel around Europe looking for a cure for this respiratory disease. And he ends up in France, and he ends up down in Italy, and he sees how a lot of other people do farming, and especially the use of hoeing, how you turn the soil over and loosen it up, and how dense the soil is, and how far down you put the seeds in the soil, and whether or not you cover the soil or cover the seeds with soil, or you just throw it out there and wait for it. Yeah, boy. Well done. I appreciate that. So when he comes back to England, he starts thinking about how to plant seeds. And I know that everybody is all up in a titter, like, oh my gosh, they're going to talk about seed planting. Most of the farming that was done at this time was done by a system of broadcasting. You'd literally have a sack full of seeds. You'd go out into the field. You'd turn the field over, and then you would just throw seeds everywhere. So this is one of the things that people get wrong on TV and movies all the friggin' time. If you've watched any movie that takes place in Europe prior to about the 1740s, and you see these nice long rows of crops, that's garbage. They did not do that. There were no nice long rows of crops. It looked like a giant field full of cabbages. My cabbages! Right? They would get scattered like cabbages from a cabbage seller's cart. I'm sure some people get that reference. Hoeing Techniques 101 play. Right. So Jethro Tull comes up with this idea that if you could evenly space out your plants so that they would have room to grow, and you organize them in a way so that they could naturally drain and that the root systems would not get clogged up in the dense soil, you would be able to actually produce more crops. Your plants would be better, your crops would produce more. I did just finish Avatar: The Last Airbender. Lazy farming, no OCD. Right. So Jethro Tull comes up with this great thing, and I actually found the original patent image for this, and I'm kind of proud for this. So here's Jethro Tull again. He comes up with, is it going to let me show the image? This guy. Boom! This is what Jethro Tull called the seed drill. Bum-ba-da-bum. Do you know much of agricultural history? Was this just Britain? How was India and China working on their crops? That's actually a great question. So China was not really practicing agriculture in the same way that... Here, let me switch back over to my face so that we're not looking at the seed drill. I don't know, you might actually want to look at the seed drill. It might be more interesting than my face. So China was doing most of its agriculture in wet fields, especially rice growing. The crops that they grew on dry land were usually grown in limited fields or on the sort of embankments between their wet fields. And they were growing stuff like barley, occasionally growing crops like wheat, but not normally. So most of the agriculture done over in China would have been wet cultivation. In India, they're still doing a lot of broadcasting, but they're also growing a lot of crops that had not really caught on so much. Most notably cotton. India grew a lot of cotton, which was becoming popular, but it didn't grow so well over in England, which is why cotton is eventually going to sneak its way over to the Americas, where the temperature is much more amenable to growing cotton. India also grew a lot of different crops. grain-wise, but they were still mostly doing the broadcasting stuff. They did a lot of different things with fertilizer. So there's this whole debate of whether or not you dump manure on crops, and if so, what kind of manure. This is actually stuff that Jethro Tull gets really interested in. He gets really, really interested in poop, which, if you've ever been around the stream, you know somehow we always find our way back to poop. Well, Jethro Tull is not necessarily a fan of poop. Poop adds certain stuff in there that might actually make your soil too rich. So you gotta cut out on the poop. Sometimes. Now, sometimes you gotta have the poop. Oh yeah, man. Tangent information is kind of my life. I live on an existential tangent that runs into infinity, and every little diversion that I make just ends up coming back to the main tangent. So ask as many questions as you would like. That's what we're here for. The magical elixir that cures all diseases. Scatman Tull. Better than snake oil. Accurate. So let's go back to the seed drill. So this is the seed drill. This is Jethro Tull's invention. I got to sneeze here in just a second. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. Spent a lot of time outside both last weekend and this most recent weekend, and my allergies have been kicking my tail for like 2 weeks. Okay, so what we see here is this is wheeled and it's pulled behind a horse, and you see this guy right here. This is actually a depth finder. It will allow you to set the correct depth for whatever crop you're planting, and there are all these fancy little gadgets that are spacers and moving pieces, and you can see the little thing here that kind of rolls out the individual little seeds. So this guy is really into this whole thing of planting crops the right way. And even though a lot of people think that he's wonky and kind of dumb, it works. He's not the only guy that sort of works on this, but he's sort of the main one. He also creates a sort of automatic hoeing device that you pull behind a horse, and this is going to help aerate the soil, all that fun stuff. The amount of crops that a field would produce using Tull's techniques is almost exponentially doubled, to the point where you're producing an incredibly large amount of crops. And what's notable, you don't have to have as many people doing it, because this has become mechanized. See where we're going already? See, I told you we're going to get there. All right, another guy. A guy named Robert Bakewell. If I can get this to delete. Let's look at this guy. Robert Bakewell. He's also a handsome gentleman. Now, who wouldn't want to bring that man home to meet Mama? Robert Bakewell. Okay, so Robert Bakewell is interested in animals. Not that way. Kind of that way, but not all that way. It looks like he ate too many Bakewells. Well, I mean, from a family called Bakewell, I bet his grandparents could cook like crazy. Or, the servants that cooked for his grandparents' family, I bet they could cook real well. Anyway, he's interested in animal breeding. And he comes up with these crazy ideas that if you look at certain animals, there are certain animals that are just better than others, right? All pigs are made equal, or all animals are made equal, but some animals are more equal than others. To throw in a sort of an Easter egg there for you. So he finds especially that there are certain things about certain animals that make them just bigger and stronger and more resilient, especially sheep. Sheep grow wool. He starts looking at sheep and goes, these sheep actually have better wool than these other sheep. I wonder what would happen if I separated these out into flocks and I put the good sheep over here and the bad sheep over here, and then I encourage these good sheep to mate with each other. And it turns out this is genetics. And Robert Bakewell figures it out. And he starts promoting these concepts of selective breeding, first with sheep and then with cows. And the average size of a cow almost doubles over the course of about the next 100 years because of his concepts here. Meta sheep needs nerf 2 whoop. Waiting for update. Right. Somebody figured out that the sheep can glitch, and now they're just ruining competitive play. So these sheep and these cows that Bakewell are sort of inventing in a way. He's creating genetic strains that are going to be species, a new species of sheep and cows, which are more resilient to things like heat and cold, more resilient to certain diseases, produce more, and take less effort. So again, we're getting more with less effort. And there's a new thing coming along too, because once all of this agricultural stuff really starts flying around, people start really examining soil. People get really interested in the dirt. And up in Norfolk, England, they come up with a agricultural rotation called the Norfolk system. And you have 4 fields and you rotate. And you grow wheat, barley, turnips, and clover. And you grow them in that order. And what turns up to happen is that if you grow the crops in that order, you never have to leave fields empty. And one of the things that crop rotation had always included previous in history. So we had crop rotation going all the way back to Mesopotamia, like the 2000s BC, early versions of crop rotation. But you always had to leave the field empty for a year or two so that it sort of naturally recovered the nutrients. But with the Norfolk system, you don't have to leave it. You can grow clover in one of those fields and let your animals eat the clover. And it turns out that clover puts nitrogen back in the soil and it replenishes the nutrients there so that the next year that you grow wheat, your wheat's going to produce really high. So you don't ever have to take a field off. So we're now producing even more food. More food, higher population, but this is the important part, and this is where the Industrial Revolution is really going to start hurting. More food means more population, but fewer people need to work on farms. And in England, from the 1750s to the 1850s, there's going to be a 40% population drop of how many people you need on the food to work in a field. So in the early 1700s, about 70% of people in England were working in or on farms. 70% of the population. If you look at the same thing 1 century later, it's only 30%. So 40% of the population of England is now without a job. So what you gonna do? And you had 10 kids so that you could have more hands. Right, but now you've had 10 kids and there's all this stuff and you don't need them anymore. So what you gonna do? Universal basic income. I don't think there was any Yang Gang in 1700s England. That would be great, though. Okay, so this is where the Industrial Revolution really starts kicking off. Because when you can start applying mechanization to agriculture, you figure out that you can apply mechanization to other stuff, right? And of those people that were originally 30% of the country, a lot of those people were in what they called the domestic industry. And sometimes you'll see this referred to as the cottage industry. And you know what this is because you've played or you've seen someone play, or you're aware of things like Skyrim, right? You go to a city in Skyrim, you walk up to the blacksmith shop. The blacksmith shop is right on the back side of this house. When the sun goes down, the blacksmith leaves the forge, walks around, and guess what? He goes to sleep in his house because he lives where he works, right? And that's the way that most of this stuff was done. You went to a tailor's shop. The downstairs part of the building was the tailor shop. The upstairs is where he lived. Same thing with basically any manufactured item. Clocks, guns, silverware, blacksmithing. Make domestic industry great again. What is that? Mdiga? Well, domestic industry gets to be great again in the post-apocalyptic future, which is why Fallout looks a lot like Skyrim, but with radiation and laser guns. So, most people that were in industry did it in their house. They had their workstations and their supplies inside their house, but this also means a lot of things, right? If you go to a blacksmith, oh wow, somebody's got, look at there. I did not know that people could get away with Fallout emotes. I figured Twitch would nuke that. Fallout is more fun, don't at me. Oh no, it's fine. That's fine. The original work from home, right. I thought it was Bethesda was lazy and wanted to force everything into the creation engine. Yeah, pretty much. Well, I mean, you know, you build a system and then you just port it to everything, including your own games. Anyway. So, if you go to a blacksmith and you get a dozen horseshoes, right? Those horseshoes are going to look mostly the same, but there are going to be little differences between all of them. If you go to the clockmaker and buy a clock, every piece of that clock is handmade. All of the gears, all of the springs, all of the everything inside that clock are handmade. So if a part of that breaks, you've got to hope that that same clockmaker can make a part that immediately and perfectly fits into the gap that was, you know, formerly held by this particular piece. Same thing with anything mechanical like a gun. You know, your gun's trigger breaks. You got to go back to the guy that got it, or take it to somebody that's really, really skilled that can literally take this gun apart and look at all of the pieces and then perfectly cast a piece to fit right back in there. So things are expensive because people have to do a lot of work to make this happen. Wouldn't that be a farrier in that instance? Yeah, farrier, blacksmith. Blacksmith can do the same thing. A farrier is technically anybody that shoes horses. Not horses' shoes. I don't know how you horse a shoe, but you can shoe a horse, right? Maybe that should be a statement. You can shoe a horse, but you can't horse a shoe. Now I'm trying to figure out how one would horse a shoe, but we won't go there. That seems a little bit off topic. Anyway, so imagine if you had to make a clock from scratch, right? You had to literally make all of the pieces. You had a pile of wood and a giant clump of metal, and from this and some sand, you had to make a clock. How much are you going to charge to make that clock? How long is it going to take you to make that clock? Weeks, maybe months, right? So you have to charge equal to what time it takes you to make it. But then people go, what if we just made a machine that did that? I know nothing about horse and no shoes, Mr. Gandalf. Oh, man. So, people figure out, like, well, what if I could take all the stuff that people are doing and just make a machine out of it? So this is where the Industrial Revolution starts kicking in. And unfortunately, the first domestic industry that really gets eaten alive by this is the textile industry. That's right. We're going to talk about cloth. So from poop to cloth, there you go. So the textile industry is labor intensive. If I told you, I want you to make me a shirt, and you go, okay, cool, no problem, I'll make you a shirt. Bring me the fabric, and I bring you a giant stack of wool and go, here's my shirt, make me a shirt out of this. Well, that's labor intensive because you have to take this wool and then you gotta, I don't know, make thread out of it, and then you gotta weave that thread into fabric, and then you have to cut all the pieces out, then you have to sew it together. That's labor intensive. And people figure out, hey, you just do all this automated, like spin it, weave it, fruit of the loom. Cloth is the OG industry, Adam and Eve, right? Okay, so, look at that, Robert Bakewell. So they invent a thing like this guy, and you're like, what in the devil is that? This is actually called a spinning jenny. And what you do with it is you slowly but surely feed in raw wool fibers, and it spins them all up and makes these nice little bundles of string. Okay. So basically, the lead up to the Industrial Revolution is a cautionary tale for how technology outpaces society. Good thing that doesn't apply today. Yeah. Yeah, you hit the handmade nail on the head. That's exactly what I'm trying to get at. 8675309. Jenny. Thanks, Vern. Okay, so this is the spinning jenny, and what does it do? Well, it makes thread. There we go. But what do you do with that? Well, you put it on this thing. What is this thing? Well, this guy is called a power loom. And it turns out that if you put one of these by a river and you hook it up to a water wheel, you can take this thread off that spinning jenny and you can turn this into fabric automatically. And here's the thing about that combo, spinning jenny plus power loom. Spinning jenny doesn't have a sick day. Spinning jenny doesn't need to go take care of the babies. Spinning jenny can run at night, doesn't need smoke breaks, doesn't need bathroom breaks. Power looms run as long as the water's turning and someone's there to change the thread. Power looms can make fabric 4,000 times faster than a human being can on a regular loom. So which one you gonna pick? Hydropower, woo! Industrial river pollution, woo! Do spinning jennies get paid the same as spinning johns? Yes, they actually do, which is 0. So there we are. The only bottleneck at this point is actually finding enough cotton. And so some guy over in America named Eli Whitney goes, well, I'm going to take something that the Indians... Oh, here's actually Half Design bringing India back in. India had hand-operated cotton gins. It's basically this sort of big fabric puller-looking things. And Eli Whitney, this guy in America, goes, I can do that automated like. And guess what he makes? He makes something called the cotton gin, which is actually short for cotton ginny. And it looks like this. And you dump cotton in and it pulls all the seeds out and it spits out this nice little fiber there. And then you can grow more cotton. And it turns out that there's actually a big old demand for cotton. When the cotton gin gets invented and you have this big influx of raw materials coming mostly from America, mostly using slave labor. If you thought I was going to talk about the Industrial Revolution and not talk about slave labor, you're wrong. The Industrial Revolution didn't work without slave labor in the Americas. It's just a thing, right? The domestic industry of textile making falls apart. By 1800, the early 1800s, it is gone. Yet, the production in England, especially in, again, these places here in the Midlands, places like Liverpool, the amount of cotton production and the amount of fabric production goes up thousands of percents. So you're not making it at home anymore. The domestic industry is now dead, but you're making thousands more percent, like exponentially more. Man's reach has never exceeded his grasp. I don't know what you're implying. It means to tell a group of assassins their next target. Right. I hear a chorus of factory girls say, yes. Thank you for the flogging Molly quote. I'll take it. Eli Whitney. Actual Indians, not the misnamed First Nation folk. Correct. Right. People from India that were already growing cotton before it was grown in America. Good call there, Vern. So, what do we have in England? We have increased population. We have massively destroyed our population's job base, because not only are we down 40% of the population in farming, now we're down most of the domestic industry, because people are going to start figuring out that not only can you make textiles, you can also make other things mechanically. So what I'm trying to tell you here is the job market's going to collapse. And it already is. And now you don't know if I'm talking about now or back in time. And you should be thinking about this. Sorry. But we've got a new guy. He's going to come on the stage. It's like history repeats itself. This guy, James, and his street name is Turned Down For. So James Turned Down For Watt. So James Watt, he's a smart guy. He decides that he wants to build an engine that doesn't have to use any sort of human power. He wants to build something that runs on the power of steam. And he has this dream about making things mechanical. Looks like he just read those lyrics too, poor guy. But he has this dream of making this engine, and this is going to lead him towards creating something that's going to literally change the world. And it leads him to Steam On, which is, of course, the name of the title tonight. So I had to bring it in eventually. You know I had to do it. It was changed from the original Voltage Amperage. Yeah. So this guy invents the steam engine. Now, there were already some people working on steam engines. There were some Italian scientists that had started doing some stuff using steam. There were some people in the Ottoman Empire that had been working around with steam stuff. But James Watt's biggest sort of additions to this are going to be a pressurized chamber that holds the steam tank and a dual action piston pumping mechanism. And if you're wondering what that looks like, well, you're in luck, because I dug up a picture of one with labels. Boom. So what you got here is a good old-fashioned steam engine in the Watt style. Watt style? Yes. So you can see here that we have a pressurized cylinder. We have this double-chambered jacketed piston that's going to make a air and watertight seal. You're going to have your hot water feed coming in. It's going to move these two pistons, move this up and down, and you're going to create steam power. Yep. And let me tell you, steam power changes the world. Because when you can run this engine anywhere, you can run anything anywhere. Previously, if you wanted to run any of these things like your spinning jennies or your power looms or your automated cotton gins or your grist mills, basically anything that required moving power, you had to stick it by water, right? Because you need that big water wheel. Guess what? You don't need that anymore. You want to build a factory right in the middle of a city? Go for it. You want to build a factory out in the middle of, God's half acre nowhere? You can do that. Why? Because now you can put everything on a steam engine, and all you need is a constant supply of stuff to burn. And now, originally, this is going to be wood, but they find out real quick, that's not going to work. So we're going to put a bookmark. Got to head out? All right, Mamba, take it easy, man. Sounds like an ad for steam power. Do you want to build a factory in the middle of a city? Check out James Watt's new steam engine, guaranteed to work all night long. See you later, water. Useless. Exactly, right? So, we're going to build this in the middle of cities. All of this new slag that we're burning, we're just going to dump it out the back of the factory. We're not really going to care about, byproducts or waste or anything like that. We're just going to, we're going to pollute everything. Aqua is so useless. I caught that reference. Yeah. So, domestic industry and textiles are gone. Steam engine is around. You don't have to be around running water, but if you're going to be out and you need to connect your raw materials to your centers of production, you got to do that somehow. How can steam help us move things from one place to another? Turns out you put a big steam engine on some metal rails and you've made yourself a train, which of course is right there. Turns out that if you take this big steam engine and you hook it up to a big paddle and you drop it on a river, you can make a paddle ship. So steam engines get put on railroads and on steamships, and this link between natural resources in the rural parts of the areas and the centers of production in the middle of the cities are going to be networked out everywhere. And this is going to not only increase production, but guess what this is also going to do? It's going to kill jobs. Because there are people whose job it is to go get this stuff and bring it to the domestic industry. The middlemen, well, they're gone now. Now, it's going to create new jobs inside of the railroad market and inside of these factories, but as you expect, there are not going to be as many jobs as they're destroying, right? Your avatar is Kasuba. Railroad history is interesting. You want to know more? I could probably do a stream on history of the railroads. I probably could do that. Might suggest that at the end of the episode. It's almost an impossible dream for me to take paddle wheeling gambling ship up and down the Mississippi. Yeah, they took our jobs! So how are all of these machines being made? Did metalworking also need to be mechanized? Actually, I can show this to you. Check this out. So here we are. We're right here talking about linking urban and city growth. Look at the next one. Metalworking. It's like you're inside my brain. You're inside my brain. Yes, we will be talking about metalworking because it gets mechanized too. Because it turns out that you need more of these and you need them fast and you need them to be interchangeable. You need the parts to be the same. If you make a power loom and you make 50 power looms, it needs to have the same parts in all 50 of those power looms. So that means you need to make these particular types of parts, which means you can standardize the production of those parts. And before long, you're standardizing things like bolts and screws, which had never been standardized before. If you wanted nails, there weren't like standard sized nails. It wasn't like, oh, go give me 5 10-penny nails. No, they were just like, they're called 10 pennies because you could get 10 of them for a penny. But they're all a little bit different. But now we can make them all the same. But we've got to make things better and hotter. Because to make these nice, good steel items, we've got to burn things hotter. And it turns out that you can take a steam engine and you can hook it up to a blower and you can turn that blower into a furnace and you can create something called a blast furnace. And then you can take that blast furnace and actually melt a whole bunch of stuff at one time, and you can make big old honking things of metal and big old things of steel and iron and cast iron, and you could do all of this mechanically. But we got to shift to a new type of burning material because wood doesn't burn hot enough. So what we going to burn? This is almost one of the alternate stream name tonight is I'm a coal man. Like, I'm a coal man. Da, 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 like that. Because coal, guess what? Coal burns hotter than wood. Hey, Shane, you know what Wisconsin has? National Railroad Museum. It's like too intimate or something. I'm inside your brain. I'm not actually a real person. Sorry you had to find out this way. Oh, I thought standardized nailing was a missionary. Oh. Fun fact, in Mississippi, right now, as far as I'm concerned, or not as far as I'm concerned, as far as I'm aware, it is still technically illegal to have relations with your significant other in any position except for missionary. There's a lot of stuff in here. There is a lot of stuff in here. Am I crazy too? I don't know. Are you? Maybe. Thus birthing the dwarves. Well, Santa gave me all these lumps of black rock, right? Yeah. So this black rock is coal. You got to burn it. It burns hotter. Here's the thing, though. To get coal, you got to dig it out of the ground because you don't just go wandering around in the woods and go, look at this giant pile of coal I found. You got to dig it up. So guess what? Hey, some new jobs for people. But guess what? Those jobs are in mines. Yeah. I'm sure everybody knows how fun mining is for a living. And I'm not trying to disparage it as a job, but I'm just saying it's dangerous. It kills folk. It's not long-term sustainable. It is not necessarily the most, what you might call cushy of jobs. Dystopian future, Santa gives coal to the good girls and boys. Yeah. Should get those tiny people. Yeah, we should get those tiny people to go in and get the coal. You're getting ahead of me there, Half Design. So, if the room doesn't collapse, the black lung will get you, right? So, we need new stuff. We make new stuff. Machining becomes standardized. Parts become standardized. This is going to further devastate the cottage industry. Because if I can go to the store and buy something that I know for a fact I can get a repair piece for. Like, let's say I go buy this clock, right? I go buy this clock that's made in a factory. I know if this gear goes out, I can go to that same factory and buy one of those gears. Hands down, no problem. They make thousands of them a month. Or I can go to this dude over here that's a clock maker, and if this gear goes out, I've got to go to him. He's got to measure everything. He's got to hope that he can do it the right way again. It's going to cost a lot of money because he's making it all by hand. Which one of those am I going to go to? Right? If I'm speaking with my dollars, where am I going to spend my dollars? There you go. Got the black lung pops. I got that reference. Get a canary. Right. So, this is all still happening in England, but things start to spread, much like many things do. So, if you look at the spread of the Industrial Revolution, this is more or less what it looks like. So, you're going to see all sorts of stuff going on in the UK. And then by the middle part of the 1800s, you're going to see this spreading over into what we would call Northern Europe, then spreading into the rest of Europe by the late 1800s. And you can still see, though, that there's a lot of places that are sort of on the borders that are not really industrialized. If I were teaching World Civ 2 right now, I would point to you that the Ottoman Empire is not industrialized. And then we would talk about World War I and them still using muskets, and you would go, why are they using muskets? And I would go, because they ain't industrialized. But there had to be that first guy that handmade the machine parts for the machine that made the machine parts, right? Yeah, but, I mean, that's one guy. Right? So that's one guy making the parts for the machine to make the parts off of. instead of everybody making their own parts in the cottage industry and then selling their own goods. It's like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. There's a machine that comes on and screws all the caps on the toothpaste tubes, and then the guy gets a job fixing the machine that took his place, right? That's sort of the bummer of the story. Can I retract and ask what led to Britain being called the cradle? It's just the picture that I found. I just liked the picture because it directly corresponded to what I wanted to say. I didn't actually make this. Well, if you want to be mean to the Ottoman soldiers and just break their guns while they're not looking. Oh, yeah, well. Yeah. Oh, the Ottomans. Okay, so what's going on in society? Meanwhile, back at the ranch, there is no more ranch, right? Because it's now a giant farm and everybody doesn't have to work there anymore because, well, now it's all automated and we have things that we pull behind the horses instead of people. Jobs are gone. And they are never, ever coming back. Jobs are gone, and they are never, ever coming back. There are new jobs, though, but these jobs are much different. These jobs are inside factories. These jobs are down in the mines. And because agricultural production is still going up, people are still having kids. And so is the population. So we went from having, let's say, 1,000 jobs. We lost 400 of those jobs to automation in the agricultural field. We lost probably another 200 of those jobs to the destruction of the cottage industry. So we're down to 100 jobs. Factories are going to add maybe another 300 jobs. Mines are going to add another 100 jobs. We're still 500 jobs down, which means that we have a giant population that keeps growing and not enough jobs for those people. So, what this sets us up to be is massively abusive to workers. Because if I own a factory, there are people standing outside my factory every day begging for me to hire them for a one-day shift. And I can bring them in and I can work them like a dog. I can pay them half of what I said I would pay to them, and they're going to be happy because they got money and everybody outside that factory did not get money. And this is going to lead to a giant string of corporate abuses. Massively unsafe working conditions, horrible, horrible working hours, and what Half Design mentioned earlier, stuff like this. These are breaker boys who are children, probably 8, maybe 9 years old, maybe 7, that work in the mines. I meant, was there a better education? What made Britain the cradle? The British Empire had a lot of access to things, and the population there was a little bit better educated. And with the growth of the British Empire, there was a lot of money moving around that expanded that middle class, or the first sort of nascent middle class. In parts, because England has the largest empire. Yes. You're already answering this. And they controlled the seas and navies. They had access to all the world's invasions. Yes. What KP said too. Pickpocketing is all the rage. Yeah, exactly. But also, lots of child labor. Because kids don't have to be in full-sized tunnels. And small tunnels collapse less frequently than big tunnels. So send the kids down into the mine. Send the kids inside these big automated machines to fix them while they're still running. Work the kids 10 hours a day. It's not all shiny and good. The Industrial Revolution is dirty, and it puts people out of jobs, and it creates lots of problems. For example, urbanization. Good thing there's no child labor laws. Right. At that time, there weren't any child labor laws. You could work that kid 14 hours a day if you wanted to. So, if you are unemployed, you go to the city because the city is where all of the jobs are now. And cities were not ready for this. If you look at the population of big cities in places like England or France, and you look at them 100 years apart, there are cities like, even big cities in Europe, like Paris, had maybe 400,000 or 500,000 people in it in the early 1700s. By the early 1800s, it has 5 or 6 million people. So they've gone up 1,000-fold. Here's the question. So think about, some of you live in actually really, really big cities. I live in a very small city, comparatively. But think if your city's population went up even 100%. So your population doubled. Where would people go? Are there enough homes in your city to handle the population going up just double? If Nashville doubled, it would be insane. Right. If my city doubled, it would be bonkers. But now imagine if it went up double. And it did that in the span of about 2 people's lifetimes. That's what we're dealing with in the Industrial Revolution. It's destroying rural jobs and it's forcing people into the cities. And these cities are rancid cesspools. Literally. Crime is crazy. Growth is not planned. People throw buildings up without code anywhere that they can, on top of other buildings, in unsafe conditions. People have to have houses. They'll live in gutters. People are living in sewers. People are living everywhere. This is NYC. We would divide the apartments into smaller units and have people living in tenements. Good that you mentioned tenements. Guess what we're going to look at next? Tenements. So this is from England. This is a row of tenement housing. All these nice big buildings here, such a clean street, children running around with no shoes on in the middle of the dirt. These houses are stacked right up on top of each other, and I guarantee you that if you looked inside these houses, there would be probably 30 or 40 people living in those houses. Because these tenements were crammed full of people. Sanitation was non-existent. A lot of these cities didn't have sewers that could handle this amount of stuff, right? And see, that's something that a lot of people don't think about, like not just homes. So if your city doubled in population, not just places to put these people, but what about water? And what about sewer and electricity? How would you handle the utilities with these people? What about the food supply for these people? What about the jobs for these people? Where are they all going to go? This is what happens. Alcoholism becomes an amazingly huge problem during this period of time because people will drown their sorrows, right? You work a 14-hour shift, you get paid half of what the guy told you. You spend a quarter of what you made getting plastered drunk because it's the only way that you can get through the day. But that also means that when you get home, you're going to beat your kids and your wife, who have also worked 14 hours a day. Your wife maybe got locked inside of the sewing machine factory because it was very common to lock women into the room until they finished their quota for the day. And you could get away with that because there aren't really labor laws. Sanitation is horrible. Disease. When disease breaks out, you have cholera and typhus and yellow fever, these huge outbreaks that wreck populations because everybody's living right on top of each other. What happens if everyone flushes the toilets at the same time? There aren't flushing toilets. The correct answer is what happens if everybody throws their bucket of refuse out the back window at the same time? That street that those kids were standing in was probably full of poop. It just was. If you've ever read Upton Sinclair's The Jungle, this. But there are other issues that are going to come out of this. Most notably, political power. So the industrialized world, places like England and France and Germany and the United States, are going to have a leg up on everybody else. because they can produce more stuff, and it doesn't take them long to figure out that more stuff can also mean more war stuff. Things like cannons and ships and guns and machine guns. Bring out your dead. Right, exactly. I got that reference. Oh, I'm not dead. The Industrial Revolution is going to fuel the second wave of imperialism for two reasons. Number one, and the biggest one, and it's important to understand this, the Industrial Revolution, the second wave. Let me pause. The Industrial Revolution triggers this big second wave because people need more natural resources. You've got to have the coal. You've got to have the metal. You've got to have the places to build and the open land and the territory. And to find all of that stuff, England is, again, a closed system. So where are you going to go? Well, you're going to go take over India. You're going to go take over China. You're going to go take over Africa because you have industrial power and they don't now. One of my favorite examples, and it's a horrible example, and I'm not trying to say like, hey, check out this example, but one of the ones that I go to the most is talking about the Belgians in the Congo. Belgium, tiny little country, population not anywhere close to, it's pretty small. They send one regiment down to the Congo and they kill 8 million people because they had industrial military power and the Congolese didn't. This is what industry power can do for you, right? It's free real estate, right? Take over the moon, take over Mars, take over Venus, right? And also unemployed that can sign up for the army. There we are. Because what do you do with all these poor people? You stick them in the army, you put a gun in their hand and say, go fight for your country, son. Right? Starting to sound familiar? I don't know. You're going to get rising globalization. This is going to cause political troubles between different countries. It's going to cause certain countries to industrialize faster than others. It's going to drive some countries together. You get the formation of Italy and Germany in 1871, in large part because it's wiser for them to pool their resources and act as one industrial country than a whole bunch of smaller ones. But it also pulls other countries apart, places like the Austro-Hungarian Empire and the Ottoman Empire, as these individual countries are able to take on their own means of production. And I know that sounds super Marxist-y, but we're about to talk about Marxism. As they're able to make themselves more independent, they want to be more independent, right? R.I.P. Holy Roman Empire. Okay, so now the Holy Roman Empire died because Napoleon killed it. After the Battle of Austerlitz in 1804, there was no more Holy Roman Empire because Napoleon said so. He said, you will now be the German Confederation and I will run you. So that was partially because of some industrial power. Some manufacturing had started over in France, but France in that period of early 1800s was not fully industrialized yet. They got to be... They got destroyed because Napoleon destroyed them. And also, they were doing a pretty good job of it themselves. The running joke amongst all of my history friends, and we all go like, ha ha ha, chuckle, 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 is that the Holy Roman Empire was neither Holy Roman nor an empire. So everybody, I think, probably knows that, but we always give ourselves like the, that's so clever, when it comes up. Anyway, so with all of this stuff, you're going to get new political movements because there is this new middle class thing, because there are positive side effects to the Industrial Revolution. One of the biggest ones is that wealth gets broken from direct relationship to property. I should say land, right? So to be considered rich before the Industrial Revolution, you had to own lots of land. But to have money after the Industrial Revolution, all you have to have is a factory. And that factory might be 2 acres big, but that factory might make more than an entire 500-acre farm if you're selling the right thing and making the right thing. So land ownership is not directly tied to wealth anymore, which opens up the field for more people to get money, because let's remember, most of these structures in Europe was based around the old feudal model that went all the way back to the 600s and 700s AD. So you gotta you got to look at the positive side of this a little bit too, that people now can make money without having to find land because the nobles aren't going to give the land up. Woo, money. The average price of goods is going to drop a lot, right? So people can produce more of things, which means that the supply goes up, the demand is steady, the price has to go down to meet it. And basic goods become more affordable. Things like books become more affordable, which means literacy rates grow up. Things like clothes, things like shoes, basic things that we today would go buy at Walmart or wherever you shop, Target or wherever. Oh, what about those fancy factory orators who would speak to the workers and tell stories? Right, there's a new job for you. You're a professional reader. You sit at a lectern and you read a book to people while they're working at the job. So you do see good things that come out of this, but you do see a lot of abuse. And because of this, you're going to get political changes. You're going to start seeing the shift of the idea between noble and lower class. And those words are going to get moved around to rich and poor. And if you are about to start thinking, he's going to talk about communism, I am going to talk about communism. I'm also going to talk about socialism. Because both of those ideas come out of the Industrial Revolution. And the idea behind communism is that Karl Marx was broke and watched a whole bunch of people in England work themselves to death. And he went, that's not fair. These people are completely disassociated from the product that they're making. They don't get to share in the profits that the business owners are doing. Their entire livelihoods are getting stolen and destroyed. And this is a bad thing. And Marx is so much more than just communism, by the way. I don't know how many of you have actually read Karl Marx stuff, and I'm not trying to say that like, I don't know how many of you have read Karl Marx. But trust me here, better dead than read. Well, I'm not trying to go convert everybody to communism, but what I'm trying to tell you is that it was a direct response to the dramatic inequality that existed between the people that had money and the people that didn't. Because there were a lot of abuses going on. We've already talked about them, and I think everybody understands that making you work 14 hours a day or 16 hours a day for very little pay, no guarantee of a future job, no day off, no breaks, that's pretty horrible stuff, right? Well, communists would say you shouldn't do that. Socialism as well. Socialism looked at the problem and said that and here we're talking about classic socialism, not what everybody bandies about on the news and so that person's a socialist. That is almost certainly not socialist in the classical sense. It's probably just something that people like to use as a label now. So socialism came about because certain people recognized that there weren't going to be people that would make laws to fix the problem. So if you look at a system, let's say, I don't know, England at this time, the people themselves that are working in these, don't buy into the propaganda. I'm not propagandizing. I'm trying to explain where the ideas come from. I'm not telling you my ideology. I'm just explaining the ideology itself. So the idea here is if, according to classical socialists, if you are a factory worker, there's a limited amount of ability that you have to change the actions of the people that own the factory, right? Because you are small and the factory owner is big. They have all the money, they have all the bargaining chips, you have very little. Now you can go on strike, sure. But remember, there are so many people that if you all go on strike, they can refill the factory and have it back up and running in just a few hours. So, yeah, it's just history, right? We're all just talking about history. So because the unemployment rate is so high, if you go on strike, that's not really too big of an inconvenience because they can just bring more people in and have this thing up and running again in no time. So the individual has very little power over the factory owner. So the question is, what is bigger than the factory owner that could then force the factory owners to act better and treat the workers better. And the answer to that solution was, to many people, the government. So the government should pass laws that would restrict the government, that would restrict factory owners in order to allow factory workers to have better terms of life, right? Better working conditions, not having to do things. And I'm going to say this, and this is historically factual and provable, and I'm not trying to promote socialism. Again, I'm not telling you what I believe. It's not my job to convince you. I'm not wearing the opinion hat here. This is just a fact. A lot of the changes that a lot of people in places like the United States and England and France today enjoy were based on socialist principles. The concept of minimum wage is a socialist principle. And let me explain to you how that is a socialist principle. The government says that a person's labor is worth at least this per hour, which means that they are forcing the factory or business owner to share more of the profits with the individual. That means the government is redistributing wealth. It's taking money from the business owner and giving it to the worker. That's socialism. But how many people would say we don't really need minimum wage? The concept of a 40-hour work week, the concept of paid vacation, all of this stuff is based on socialist principles. And again, socialism today gets thrown around on the news, and basically if you say we should give somebody anything, you're like, that's socialism. America's actually a lot more socialist than people like. Damn socialist. Well, I mean, it is what it is. And this is just the way that it comes. But these ideas of socialism and communism come out of the Industrial Revolution because of this massive inequality. The fact that people could be treated like parts of the machine, like cogs in the mechanism, right? That they weren't really people, they were effectively consumed for their calories. That stuff is what happens when the Industrial Revolution takes over. People no longer sort of get treated like people, they get treated like machines. So the response to that is stuff like socialism and communism. Socialism, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. So, all right. So there's the Industrial Revolution for you. It starts off with farming, and it ends up with a lot of angry people. But we get this middle class. We get these people that can make money, can save money. We have a lot of... There are also a lot of movements that start during this period of time that are humanitarian. You get stuff like the United Way. You get stuff like the Red Cross. Lots of charities. People that are able to save and donate money can donate money to these beneficial organizations that can help other people. You have stuff like soup kitchens and orphanages. You even get the first free education during this period of time. And this is going to be crazy for you. Originally, free education was frowned upon by a lot of people because it was offered to the poor. And a lot of people, especially the middle class and the rich people, were like, why do they deserve free schooling? Because they couldn't pay for it. Because education was not a system like it is today. It was basically, can you pay to hire a tutor? And a lot of people couldn't. But if you have a demand and a change in the job market and you need a more educated population, giving free education to the poor people at the time seemed like a good idea. Yeah, poor people. Free education for people, right? Anyway, I know that I'm lighting up all sorts of warning lights for Agent Jimmy right now. Agent Jimmy, I want you to know that I am talking about historical accurate things, and I'm not pronouncing any of my particular beliefs. It's not my job to sit here on the stream and natter on about my opinion. I don't have the opinion hat on. Agent Jimmy, by the way, is the FBI agent who has to monitor all of my social media stuff to make sure that I'm not citing or inciting revolutions and things like that. So, okie dokie. So that's the Industrial Revolution. It's an interesting period of time. It literally changes the world. The world that we live in today is a product of that. Universal basic income. I repeat. Don't apologize. Don't apologize. Everybody here is free to share your opinions whenever you want to. I will share my opinion when I'm wearing the opinion hat, and I am not wearing it now. So there we are. Okie doke. So that wraps up what I wanted to say. But we don't have to be done. We can do other stuff. We can talk about other things if you all have questions. Don't forget that below you in the chat, you have all sorts of really fun things to do with your adventure points. Let me get rid of this stuff. Boop. We can talk about the news, or I can tell stories, or we can do whatever. But I have officially wrapped up my planned session for this viewer request stream. So what I'm going to do right now, while everybody is sort of milling about, I'm going to go over here to Twitch, and I'm going to start working on setting up a new poll. When was public education standardized and where? We're actually going to be, well, I say we. The United States is actually going to be sort of at the front of that. The concept of public education is fought for a really, really long time. Again, a lot of people really did not like the idea of free public education. But places in the United States, especially in the Midwest, places like Ohio and Illinois and Indiana, were sort of pioneers in free public schooling. It got spread pretty quickly through the United States. Around the same time, you're starting to see stuff like this happen a little bit over in Europe, but it's mostly, again, going to be sort of relegated over into the corner for the poor people. And a lot of people actually did not send their kids to free public education because of the stigma that it would make them poor. So you have to fight social currents. You also have to fight a lot of, kind of pushback against a lot of people. I think it was Russia who were the first to put education in their constitution. That seems interesting, and I think I may have heard that, but I cannot confirm that. It seems like I might have heard that before, but I can't promise it. But I don't think that the United States technically has anything in the Constitution about education. But I shouldn't do that. I didn't realize that I had my mic on on Twitch here. But it's a good question. I know one of the ways that students, and I actually looked this up the other day back earlier in the year. I was taking a class on education and the sociology of education. And I found this little, so this is a free random history fact for you. In Ohio, there were some schools that would charge really cheap tuition. And if you didn't have money, you could pay your tuition in firewood. Okay, so got to put on the opinion hat here. The opinion hat has been summoned. Okay, the opinion hat, it is on. Do you think more modern farming technologies, i.e. GMO plants, pesticides, which are patented while producing more food, make it more expensive rather than cheaper because of said patents? Oh. I don't know. I will tell you that I am very concerned about companies that can get patents on genetic strains of plants. And it especially bothers me that they can do stuff like forbid you from replanting the crops. So, for example, there are strains of corn that are owned by these big GMO agricultural companies. And you can't, so you buy it from them 1 year. You plant it. You can't keep any of it to plant the next year. You have to buy, the new version from them. And that seems to me to be way too powerful. I think that what is a potential future, and this is again my opinion because I'm wearing the opinion hat. What is one potential future is that eventually the regular crops that people grow are all going to basically be patented, and these big agricultural businesses are going to have agricultural monopolies over our food supply, and then they're going to be able to jack the price around however they want to. And that freaks me the crap out. I don't like that at all. A lot of these big agriculture businesses are just as malicious as any other monopoly, and they buy out small farms. They act like jerks, and I don't like it. I don't think that it necessarily makes things more expensive now because there's so much food out there, but I think that once they corner the market, they can absolutely jack the price up. And I think that is not completely out of the question from happening. So I know that wasn't directly answering your question, but I think that got around to it eventually. Here for the hat. Let's go back to bartering. It's almost like John Deere and Apple keeping you from legally repairing your devices. Yes, that's also garbage. If I buy something, I should be able to fix it. Time to start gardening. Right. As an addendum to the opinion hat summoning, how do you think patent law should be modified? I think patent law should have a set and unavoidable expiration date. And I think that companies should be required to be much more transparent about how much money they put into R&D and how much money it takes them to produce things, so that they are... I should be wearing the opinion hat still. So that the more accountability can be made on these patents. If you've patented something and you've had it enough time to make back your investment and a certain amount of profit, that patent should be released. And I think that's true for just about anything. I don't think that there's too much of an argument that could be made that somebody should be able to hold a patent indefinitely. Patent water, easy win. Rake in the monies. So there's my opinion on that stuff. All right. Hair's all goofed up, but that's okay. So let's make a new poll. All right. So we're going to ask what... Oh, well, I mean, if you have other questions or other thingies or, responses or stuff like that, you are welcome to go ahead and throw those. I'm going to work on this thing real quick. Can't make it rain? Oh, yeah. Okay, so we're to that fun point of the show where everybody that wants to can suggest a topic for us to talk about on the next viewer request episode. So as traditional, we're going to carry over the number 2. Junk Collector, that's the thing though. There are a lot of loopholes that exist out there where people can extend those patents for a long time. And those patents can be almost indefinitely extended in certain situations. In places like, this is a big thing in pharmaceuticals. One of the reasons we don't have more generic drugs is because they keep getting patents extended, or the big pharmaceutical company will end up buying out the potential generic brand and then sitting on it forever. Big pharma, that's a whole thing. But you can see stuff like production rights, book rights, music rights, the time that things take to move into the public domain is very, very slow. There are a lot of ways for companies to hold on to patents for a lot longer than 20 years. And I think that a lot of those loopholes need to be closed. So there's that. Okay. So, as normal in our selection, we will carry over the number 2 winner. Oh, also, hi, Junk Collector. How's it going? I hope you're doing okay, my friend. I just realized that you said hi, and then I was in the middle of a blah, 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 and I didn't. We'll post a video related to the copyright in the Discord. Cool. Copyright and patent are slightly different, but they're effectively sort of the kind of the same scenario. Anyway, what am I saying? Well, but patents on things can be done the same sort of way. You can extend patents too, for as long as you can bribe people to let you extend the patent. We'll just leave it at that. Hey, Crush, what's up, man? Copyright and trademark has gotten totally cut out of control. Oh yeah, that stuff is crazy too. Okay, so I am running around in circles, but that's okay because I'm always kind of running around in circles. But what we're looking for here, we're looking for suggestions for the next viewer request stream. The first option is going to be the number 2 option from last poll, which was Samurai. So Samurai is going to be on the list, but what I need from you all are 3 more concepts or ideas or periods of history or things that you want to potentially talk about on the stream. The South Sea Bubble. I don't actually know what the South Sea Bubble is. Where do bluefish come from? South Sea Bubble Company. Okay, so this is a British joint stock company that went belly up. Okay, I mean, we can put it on there. I will admit that I don't know anything about that. But I'll do some research and pull it up if that's what people want. Okay, so 2 more options. Anybody? If you had a history professor captive in your basement and you could ply questions at him in order to secure his future release, what would you want to talk about? History of global trading countries in the global trading companies in the naval era. So I'm thinking you're talking about like the Dutch East India Corporation and the British Tea Company and stuff like that. We could do that. Well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll combine that with the ones that's already there with the South Sea Company. We'll just do, and I will include South Sea Company when I talk about this, if it gets chosen. This will be, how do I term that? We'll just call it global companies in the 1700s. And we'll know that we're talking about stuff like the Dutch East Asia Company and the British East India Company and stuff like that. History of Flint. Okay, I mean, we'll put it on here. I know it'll get at least 1 vote. History of Flint. Contra. Oh, the Contra. All right, so there's 4. History of Middle Earth. Somebody asked about the history of the railroad. Okay, so yeah, I should have put that on there. We'll throw it on there. Okay, I can only put 5 options. So we're going to put all of these in the poll. I'm going to start the poll right now. Okay, or I'm not going to start the poll right now. I'm going to start the poll right now. There we are. Okay, so above you in the chat History of Pink Floyd. I could probably work on that. So above you in the chat, there's a little thing that says, what should we cover next? And a little down arrow. So if you click on that little down arrow, you can vote on what we cover next. What were some of these other ones? History of Middle Earth. Yeah, I know. Secret societies. So that would be hard to do. We'd have to kind of narrow down secret societies a little bit. Contra is not the video game. We're talking about the rebels and communist activists in, the people in Nicaragua during the Cold War. Those Contras. Yeah, the thing that ends up becoming Iran-Contra. Okay. Indiana Jones. Dun, 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 dun. The political philosophy and the rise of nations. Half Design, we've already covered that, actually. If you want to go back and look at some of the earliest VODs, we have talked about the origin of governments. We've talked about old school political philosophy, concepts of arranging groups of people. That's something that we've covered. Contraband, history of Contra world records. I don't think we could get enough out of that one though. Well, secret societies we could still do, but we'd have to kind of narrow that down a little bit. Like, the secret societies have been around for a long time. So that would be a bit too broad, actually. And it looks like the winner is Samurai. And Arcadian forgot to hit vote. All right, Arcadian, what did you want to vote for? The Illuminati? You voted for Samurai? Okay, you would have voted... Okay, so Samurai is going to win. Samurai! I kind of figured that one would. I knew a lot of people like Japanese history. So we will talk about the history of Samurai. That will be not next Tuesday, but the next. Let me tell you what that date is. That is November 3. So come back here November 3 and we'll talk about some Samurai. That'll be a fun one. I like Japanese history. Who had the first secret society? Where did these ideas come from in separate areas? Well, yeah. November 3 might be a strange night. Is November 3 something odd that I don't know about? Oh, is that... Oh, dude, is that election night? Oh, crap. Yeah, I can't do anything on that. I don't think I want to do a stream on election night. Because I think viewers would probably be, like, lower than dirt. So we might do November the 2nd or the 4th, maybe. Keep an eyeball on the Discord. Keep an eyeball on Discord. There's the link to the Discord. Keep an eyeball on it. When I figure out what we're going to do, I will definitely let everybody know. Ooh, November the 3rd. Better to have actual Samurai to interview Grumpy Cat. Oh, man. I can't believe it's so close. That's actually giving me kind of like a little bit of a heart thing. So speaking of Saturday, Arcadian, we might have a stream on Saturday. This is a big maybe. It's a big question mark, and it's really going to be down to how much work I can get done between now and then. But Graythar, friend of the channel, had submitted the 10K point submission for a request stream. And for those of you that have been around for a while, remember that below you have the option to redeem 10,000 adventure points and just name a viewer request stream. So you can just call it what you want it and do what you want. So I reserve the right to veto those, though, by the way. And I'll give you your points back. So we're not doing something silly like History of Toe Jam or some garbage like that. But Grethar redeemed those, and then his work schedule got changed to where he will not be able to attend streams at night. So I have been talking with him about trying to do one on a Saturday morning so that he can attend. See, that's Arcadian. I told you I reserve the right to veto those. I am not doing Middle Earth. I've already told you why. Now I've got to figure out how to redeem your points. Middle Earth is not actually history. That is something that we're going to... Oh, crud. Now I've really got to figure out how to do that. Because I've never actually had... I mean, it's... The history of Middle Earth is fictional history. Middle Earth, like Lord of the Rings, Tolkien Middle Earth. Which people have been bugging me to do for a long time. And... Tolkien wrote it and created it, so there it's history. Oh, David Peterson. Oh, the history of the film development. And you're upset now. I know, but I think you feel like you kind of maybe set yourself up for that one, because I have been telling people that I'm not going to do that one for a while now. And I've been telling people that I've been trying to work out a way to do that in a special way so that it doesn't actually show up on the Adventures in History thing. I'm working on it. I think that I've got an idea. It's going to be something that is completely separate from the normal show. We can get Way to Cuff on as a co-streamer for the Lord of the Rings since he was on the set. Oh, well, there we go. So no History of the Mouse Guard. See, but that would be a different thing. Like, I mean, David, if you wanted me to do History of the Mouse Guard, that would be fine. I would do, like... But you actually know more about the history of the Mouse Guard than I do. That's the thing. Like, I would not be the right person to do that. If you wanted to do History of Mouse Guard, something like Kishore did Science of Mouse Guard, I could do that, but that would be something probably better suited for your channel. I don't know. I don't know how that works. Okay, so here's the thing. On this History of Middle Earth thing, it's going to happen. It's going to happen eventually. I don't have it all figured out yet, mostly because life has been so bonkers crazy that I have not had enough chance to fiddle around with stuff like I needed to. I'm working on it. It will happen eventually. If you're just patient, it will come. History of Tuesday. Oh man, now you guys are just under my skin, aren't you? That's okay. So because you know me, you do Mouse Guard, but because you don't mod Tolkien's channel, he's out. Now you guys are just being persnickety. No. I would not do History of Mouse Guard on my show, Adventures in History. If you wanted me to do that on your channel, I would come on and happily do it. But that's not something that really fits my idiom. So there's that. Unless it was something that I planned specially and it was separate from the regularly scheduled Adventures in History and viewer request stuff that I do. If it was something like I don't know, like some kind of like charity thing or some kind of viewer goal thing, I don't know. So there's that. Pirates would be fine. History of Clan McInnes. I know a little bit about my history. There is no Clan McInnes. History of Salt? Probably not. McInnes is actually a made-up last name. It means son of the island, and my family made it up when they got here because they didn't naturally have a last name, so they needed something. There's that. Why not make a new series, Adventures in Not History? and I could play the song backward at the beginning. Arcadian, it's coming. It's coming eventually. It will happen once I get enough time to sort of figure out how I want to do that. Maybe I'll set up a follower goal or something like that. I don't want it to be part of my normal stream. It's not like if I sit here and talk about like Fingolfin and Fëanor and, you know, Thingol and Melion and the kingdom of Doriath, that's not really history. That's fantasy stuff. And I don't have a problem talking about that outside of the context of my actual channel where I'm supposed to be talking about history. So, there's that. And we've got to call the puppy. So, let me call the puppy. It is because I don't call it Adventures in History, and I don't run the viewer request stuff, and I don't use any of my channel points when I'm putting together robots. There we go. Come on, come and see me. Come here. She must have just woken up because she's showing me the chicken. Come here. Come and see me. Come here. Come on. Oh, there's the puppy. Hey, where are you going? Where are you going? Can I have the chicken? Hello. But she wants... Oh, are you going to sniff the camera? Wants the chicken. Gets the chicken. And then promptly leaves the room. The history of frustration. The mobile webcam has improved puppy time. It has. Okay, so let's see who's around that we might be able to raid. Who is on Twitch? Who is on Twitch? Let's see. Just needed to check up on you and your weird camera. Shane is streaming. I wonder if I could actually like inception myself and stream into my stuff. And hate fictional history. I don't hate fictional history. I just don't like to mix across the streams. Streamception. Okay. Let's see. Cat Videos is up and Cave Geek is up. Stream into myself. Let's see what Cave Geek is doing. So Cave Geek looks like he's building something in a 3D rendering platform. I don't actually know what that is. Okay. Oh, it's a bunch of swords. There we are. Okay. He's building swords. I know. David Peterson trolling Shane is my new favorite thing. It's okay. I give him enough guff in his channel that I deserve a little bit of it back. Wouldn't that be like being John Malkovich where you end up on the New Jersey Turnpike? Okay, so we rated Cat Videos, I think, last week. We have not rated Cave Geek in quite some time, so I think we're going to go raid the Cave Geek. He typically makes ancient-looking maps out of leather. He's building some swords right now in a 3D modeling thing. Unless anybody has anything else. Anybody got any talks or redemptions or anything like that? Anybody got any last minute questions? Wait and pause. I think something just happened that is going to change what I want to do. Because I just saw that Tony Moy went live. And if Tony Moy is live, we're going to go raid Tony Moy. Because I've never had the opportunity to raid him. Oh, he's got his coming soon screen up. So we're going to kill some time between now and Tony Moy. So, because we have Arcadian in the room, and because this, let's get this whole history of Middle Earth thing hashed out. So, let me look at some stuff real quick. Tell us a story about Flint. Okay, let me go to Flint, and we're going to need to get to Calumet Street. I can't believe this is actually going to happen, but sure, why not? Okay, so where's the school? Okay, so there's the school. This is the elementary school that our protagonist lives on. This is the side of Calumet Street that our protagonist lived on. And what's the fun thing about this side of the street is that it was Calumet Street, and the bigger part of Calumet Street is over here. And then there's this little bit that's over on this side. So occasionally, if our protagonist ordered pizza or something delivered, it wouldn't get there on time because nobody would know where that side of Calumet Street is. So over here, dude, I had this freaking crazy bizarre memory. I remember all of this stuff. I remember where the swing was. I remember where the hills that you were going to plan all that stuff out. Dad's ambulance when he broke his leg. Yeah. That's the thing about my brain. It all gets stuck up there and it never really goes away. So welcome to having a freaking crazy weird brain. Anyway, so let me look. Where am I at? Okay, so right now I am at 242 followers. And I will make you all a deal. So here's the deal. Upon me reaching 300 followers, which is another 58 followers, I will, unless you unfollow, sure, which is possible. When I hit 300 followers, I will plan a special non-Adventures in History, non-viewer request stream where we just talk about the history of Lord of the Rings. And we'll do one stream for every 100 followers after that. How about that? Does that sound okay? So let's go get Shane more followers. Ban Shane McInnes. 242? I don't know what 242, like, I have 242 followers, not subscriptions, David. Not subscriptions. Dude, I've got 12 subscriptions right now. So don't freak out that I have 242 subscriptions. I have 242 followers. Followers, which is actually way more than I thought that I would ever have, but actually quite small for a stream. Throw that deal into the fires of Mordor. Okay, so when we get to 300, we will do the foundations of Middle-earth, and we will cover the original gods, the creation of the universe, and we will get to the point where they make the stars. How about that? That's a good point where we get the title Elbereth for our Queen of the Gods. And by that point, we will have elves, and they will be hanging out in the darkness, and we'll have that kind of stuff. What am I talking about? Hey, Magnificent, how's it going? How many follows for the Temple of Shane? I don't know what the Temple of Shane is. What is that? What is this tiny URL? Oh, it's actually to me. Man, where is Tony Moy? He's got this pre-stream running for minutes. It rings a bell. Elf breath. EF. What was it? I thought it was elf lips. Vern, are you referring to the insult that Donatello uses against Casey Jones in the original Ninja Turtles movie? Because I thought that was elf lips. The adventure hat. Why I don't climb too high on trees anymore. Okay, so the story went like this. We were walking around... Oh, Elbereth. There you go. The Temple of Shane is where Shainism was born. So we were walking around. There was this tree outside of the cabin we were staying, and it had limbs very close to the ground. And we had the puppy with us. And Brittany said, that looks like a good tree to climb. And I said, are you going to go climb it? So she decided she was going to go climb it. And I had to stand on the bottom of the tree for a couple of reasons. Number one, I had to hold the puppy, because if you don't hold the leash of the puppy and we're standing outside, she doesn't listen very well to humans. So she was likely to run off into the lake, which she had already done. It took her literally 5 minutes from showing up at the cabin on the lake to her being in the lake, because she's a dum-dum and she doesn't understand that the grass grows out onto the water. So Brittany decided she was going to climb the tree. So I had to hold the puppy. Also, I wanted to be under her in case she fell. I can catch Brittany because she is tiny. Brittany could not catch me. Now, because I'm wearing the adventure hat, I do feel like I need to tell you a story of when I've climbed on something that I probably should not have climbed on. So if you look at the backdrop or the top display of my my Twitch stream, or if you look at the icon that is our Discord thing, you can see me walking through a field of wheat doing the gladiator thing, but there's a Roman building in the background, which is actually pertinent because it is it's a temple that marks the place where a Roman emperor died, the Emperor Trajan. And I could tell when we were there, this, by the way, is in Turkey, south central Turkey. And I could tell that there was stuff on top of the building, but to get there I had to climb on top of it. But to do that, I had to get a boost from a friend. The wall is probably about 10 or so feet tall. And when I got up there, I really only got down by hanging on to this particular tree or this little sort of sapling that was growing out the side of this place, and I almost died coming down. So there's a story of me climbing on something ancient. If I have a photo of me on top of that, I'll post it in the Discord in just a minute. But anyway, so there's an adventure hat story, because I didn't want you to feel like you had got gypped on the adventure hat. Wait, that was you? Okay, so Tony is live now. We're going to go raid Tony. Tony is a great artist. He is an amazing watercolorist. He's a great person. So when we get there, our battle cry, as always, will be adventure. And please, if you have them, throw as many of the little emotes, adventure hats as you can. Don't use gypped. Should I not use that? I didn't want you to feel like you had been cheated. I apologize. So, okay. So when we get to Tony, show him some love. If you're not already following, throw him a follow. Great guy. He's painting The Rocketeer, which is going to be, I'm sure, amazing. He's actually sketching it out right now. So we're going to go raid Tony. I will see everybody back around Thursday night, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And we'll be talking about early Rome. I'm pretty excited about early Rome. And maybe Saturday. I don't know about Saturday, but we'll see. Keep an eyeball on the Discord, and we will we'll get there when we get there. So I'm gonna hit this old button here, and we're going to sneak off to the outro sign. Hope everybody has a good one. I will see everybody next time.